Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is a story sent in by a viewer I'll call Alex. Alex is a photographer, an artist. He sees the world in light and shadow, and he believes that a camera isn't just a tool, but a means to capture the unseen beauty in everyday life. He's a rational guy, an idealist who believes in the power of a perfect image. He doesn't believe in ghosts or the supernatural. He believes in what his lens can show him. He was about to discover that some things are best left unseen. The story begins in a small antique shop in a quiet corner of Portland, Oregon. Alex was there on a whim, looking for inspiration. He'd passed the shop 100 times, its window filled with dusty trinkets and faded furniture. Tucked away on a high shelf, covered in a fine layer of dust, he found it. An old, beautiful camera. It was a vintage large format camera, a heavy, wooden thing with a brass lens and a dark, folded bellows. The wood was a dark mahogany, smooth and cool to the touch. It felt heavy and substantial in his hands, like it had a story to tell. The shop owner, a small, hunched man with tired eyes, seemed reluctant to sell it. He kept muttering about it being a special piece, and asked Alex if he was a real photographer. When Alex nodded, the man looked at him with a strange, almost pitying look. "It doesn't just take pictures," he said, his voice a dry whisper. "It shows you things you're not meant to see." Alex laughed it off as the ramblings of an eccentric old man. He bought the camera for a song, along with a few boxes of old, black and white film. Back in his apartment, Alex set the camera up on a tripod. It had a strange, powerful presence. He spent the next few days taking photos, getting used to its weight and the old-fashioned process. The first few rolls of film were of mundane things. His cat sleeping in a sunbeam, the cityscape from his window, a self-portrait. He developed them in his makeshift darkroom, and the results were stunning. The photos had a depth and clarity that his modern digital camera couldn't replicate. But there was something else. A flicker in the corner of one frame, a smear of shadow that shouldn't be there. He dismissed it as a developing error. But then, he took a picture of his friend, Mia, who was visiting for dinner. She was sitting on his couch, laughing. When the photo developed, the image was perfect. But just behind her, in a spot that was completely empty when he took the photo, there was a faint, wavering outline of a figure. It was tall and thin, its limbs impossibly long, like something out of a child's drawing. Its head was a dark, featureless blur. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't a smudge or a mistake. It was there, clear as day. He showed it to Mia. She just laughed. "Your old camera is haunted, Alex," she joked, but there was a tremor in her voice. Over the next week, the photos got worse. The shadows became more defined, the figures more terrifying. He took a picture of a busy street corner, and in the finished photo, there were no people. Just a street filled with tall, bent creatures with spindly limbs, their heads tilted in a way that defied human anatomy. They were looking directly at the camera. He took a photo of the inside of his apartment, and when it developed, it showed a figure standing in his hallway. Its face a smear of static, its mouth a wide black hole. The most terrifying part wasn't the photos. It was the feeling that they were looking back. The first sighting in real life happened late one night. Alex was in his kitchen, getting a glass of water, when he saw it. A quick flash in his peripheral vision, in the reflection of the glass door of his oven. It was tall and thin, a dark smudge of a thing, standing just behind him. He spun around, but the kitchen was empty. He started carrying the camera with him everywhere, a weird kind of compulsion taking hold. He had to know what was happening. He had to capture it. The logical side of his brain was screaming for him to stop, but the artistic, curious side was in full control. He went back to the antique shop, but it was closed, the windows boarded up, a for lease sign hanging in the window. The old man was gone. Alex began to lose sleep. He was jumpy, constantly looking over his shoulder. The clicking sound of the camera shutter from the photos seemed to echo in his ears. He started to hear a soft scuttling sound at night, coming from the attic. A sound like 100 tiny spiders skittering across the floorboards. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that the creatures in the photos were now in his world, and they were getting closer. He started researching the camera, obsessively, late into the night. He found an old, archived article from a local newspaper about a reclusive photographer named Julian Thorne. Thorne had been renowned for his bizarre, nightmarish photos, but he was dismissed as an artist with a dark imagination. The article said he had gone mad and died in his studio, which was found filled with horrific images and covered in strange, ritualistic symbols. Thorne was obsessed with the specific idea that there was a parallel world that existed just out of sight, and he had found a way to see it. He believed that the camera was the key. He called them the others. Alex's blood ran cold. The article had a photo of Thorne's studio, and in the corner, on a high shelf, was a camera. The exact same camera. He had not just bought an antique, he had bought a portal. He read Thorne's last journal entry, which was included in the article. The words were a frantic, spidery scrawl. "They are here. I showed them to the world, and now they see us. The camera is not just a window, it's a door. It's a way for them to cross over. Every time I take a picture of a person, I'm marking them, showing them to the others. I can't stop. They are inside me now, in my mind. The camera must be destroyed." Alex's hands began to shake uncontrollably. He thought back to the photos he had taken. Mia on the couch, his friends at the park, even his cat. He had marked them. He had made them visible. He ran to the window and looked out. The streetlights flickered, and in the shadows of the alley across the street, he saw them. Two tall, impossibly thin figures, standing perfectly still, watching his window. They had seen him. He heard a soft click from the living room. The shutter. The camera, sitting on its tripod, had just taken a photo of the empty room. When he looked at his phone, a new picture was in his gallery. A grainy, distorted image of a dark figure standing in his kitchen. The figure from the photo he took of his apartment was now there, in his kitchen waiting. He knew what he had to do. He had to destroy the camera. He grabbed a hammer from his toolbox and ran to the living room. The camera sat on the tripod, its brass lens glinting in the dim light. As he raised the hammer, a low, wet clicking sound came from the hallway. He froze. A dark, wavering figure stepped into the living room, its body an impossible jumble of joints and angles. It was the creature from the kitchen photo. It moved with a jerky, unnatural grace, its head tilted as if listening. Another click came from the kitchen, then another. They were all over the house now, the clicking sound a rhythmic, terrifying chorus. The figures from his photos, now flesh and blood horrors. He could feel the cold radiating from them, the air thick with the smell of old paper and dust. The creature in front of him raised a long, spindly arm, its fingers ending in razor-sharp claws. It let out a sound like 100 grinding teeth. Alex didn't hesitate. He swung the hammer with all his might, smashing it into the wooden body of the camera. The wood splintered, the glass of the lens shattered, and the bellows tore with a ripping sound. A high-pitched, electronic shriek filled the room, a sound of pure agony. The figures in the hallway and the kitchen screamed, their forms flickering like a bad signal before dissolving into thin, black smoke that seeped out through the cracks in the doors. The room went silent. The air was no longer cold and thick. He stood there, panting, the shattered remains of the camera at his feet. He had done it. He had closed the door. He had saved himself, and he had saved his friends. Or so he thought. He picked up a shard of the camera's lens, its edge jagged and sharp. He looked at his reflection in the dark, smoky glass. For a split second, he saw not his own face, but a distorted, screaming smear of a thing, its eyes black holes, its mouth a wide, screaming oval. It was the creature from the photo, and it was looking at him. But it wasn't a reflection. It was a projection. He realized the horror of the situation. The camera wasn't the portal. The camera was just the tool. The real horror was that he had used it to take pictures of himself. The last photo, the one he had taken of himself in the darkroom, had made him a target. He had already marked himself. He ran to his phone to delete the last photo, but it was already gone. And in his gallery, in its place, was a single, new image. A perfect, clear photograph of his face, his eyes wide with terror, taken from his own perspective. It was the last photo, the final frame. And behind him, barely visible in the dark background, a pair of long, spindly fingers rested on his shoulders. He knew that the portal was closed, and that the creatures were gone. But one of them had already made it through, and it was now in his world. A silent, terrifying passenger, an invisible presence that would never leave him. And all because of a single, fateful decision made out of simple human curiosity. Remember, you never know what history is hidden beneath the surface of a seemingly perfect object. Sometimes, what's left behind isn't just an old camera. Sometimes, it's something that's still looking for a place to call home. If you enjoyed this story, and you want to hear more chilling tales from the darkest corners of the real world, be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're brave enough to face the darkness with me again, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell turned on. Until next time, stay safe out there.